boys and girls. I'm so excited that we're back and we're talking about the mitten. I absolutely love Jan Brett's stories. I love their pictures, and I think that it's so much fun to talk about and read about and learn about things like winter and snow. But first, before we get started, I wanted to show you the 2 pages that you're going to need. You're going to need this page, but you have 2 sides. You only need 1 side. So if you want right now to take either a marker or some scissors and just quick cut the page in half, throw this page out. You don't need that side. You only need 1/2, okay? So you're going to need your squares, but what I do want you to do is I want you to pause the video, and when you come back, I want you to have all of these squares cut out, and then as best as you can, and then I want you to have your mittens cut out around them, okay? I will see you in just a couple minutes. All right, do you have your mittens cut out and then all of your squares cut out? We're going to use those in just a bit, but I wanted us to be ready to go. First, I want to talk about our story, okay? The mitten. And last time we met and we read this story, we were talking about predicting. And I pointed out that there's mittens on each side of the page. And I think, if I remember correctly, this is true for all of Jan Brett's stories. There's pictures on each side of the page, plus the picture in the middle. And the pictures on the outsides of the page tell a story in themselves. So let's look at this first one. Here's the boy, Nicky, looking out the window. What do you think he sees out the window? We can kind of see it right here on the branches. He sees snow, right? And then maybe here he's so excited he's going out the door to check. But what do you need before you go outside and play in the snow? You need your snow gear on. You're right. So, here's Baba. And some of you guys, when we meet and we talk in our Zooms, I hear you talk about Nana and Papa and Poppy and Nona and Grandma and Grandpa. We have there are different names that we call our grandparents, and that's all okay. But we just gotta know who they're talking about. So Nicky calls this person Baba, but it's the same thing as his grandma or his Nana or his Nona. Okay? All of those are different words for grandma. And this is how they used to knit back in the day. I don't really know how this thing works, but I know that it's a knitting wheel, and I know as much as Snow White or Sleeping Beauty tells me about it. It's sharp. And then over here, she's getting some yarn out. What color is the yarn? Do you remember what color Nicky wanted his mittens to be? He wanted them to be white, right? Okay. So today, I'm not going to read the words on this story, but I'm going to practice using a skill called retelling. Okay? So we've already kind of started talking about remembering. So Nicky wanted to go outside and play in the snow, but he wanted mittens that were white as snow. Grandma at first, or Baba, didn't want to make Nicky white as snow mittens because, why? If they fell off, you wouldn't be able to find them, right? Yeah, so most of the time our mittens are different colors so that way we can find them. But eventually she agreed. So here is Baba knitting one snow white mitten, and Nicky is helping bring some yarn to her. And I moved the page so you could see the mittens. It's just snowy trees. There's snowy trees on this side, but look who's coming. This side is always the prediction side. It tells us who is coming. So Nicky is outside and he's playing, but he dropped one of his mittens. And who comes into his mitten? The mole comes into his mitten right here. He's tired after a long day of tunneling. Here's Nicky playing in the snow. His one mitten is tucked away. Not sure why it's not on his hand, but it's tucked away. And here's the mole. Who's coming next? The rabbit. This kind of rabbit is called a snowshoe rabbit. So notice on this side, it's what Nicky is doing outside. The snowshoe rabbit is going to come into the mitten, stretch it just a bit, and make it a little bit bigger, but he makes room for himself. And look who's coming next. Mr. Hedgehog. Hedgehogs are pokey. They have long, spiky pokes. So the rabbit and the mole were like, woo, moving over. I don't want to get poked. And the hedgehog squeezes his way in. And then comes the owl. Nicky's building some snowballs. The owl comes, and all the animals inside the mitten see the owl's pointy toes. They call them talons in the picture, or in the book. They see his pointy talons, and they scoot on over. And then comes, I think this was a badger. Is this a badger? Let's double check. Yep, a badger. In comes the badger. And the badger has great big diggers. He has long, sharp claws to dig through the dirt. And he comes and says, scooch over. So here's all the animals. The mitten is growing. You can see the hedgehog's spine, or pokes, needles. I don't really know what they're called. I think they're needles. His needles are poking through the mitten in the spot that he has. And here comes the fox. The fox has scary teeth. And the animals do not want to be bitten. So they move on over. And he nudges his way in. His nose is all the way sticking up. And look who comes next. Did you think that a bear could fit in a mitten? Oh my goodness. Oh, here's Nicky looking. He still has his one mitten tucked away. Here comes the bear in the mitten. There's not room in there. But all the animals are scared of the bear. They move over and certainly make room for the bear. And then here comes the little mouse. The little mouse makes room right on the bear's nose. Just as Nicky realizes that he only has one mitten. The mouse's whiskers tickle the bear's nose, and he sneezes a great big ha-choo! And the animals fly out of the mitten. Nicky's running home, and as he's running home, he sees the shape of the mitten against the sky. Oh, here's the fox falling on his booty, and the mouse, and the owl's back there. And here's the bear, and the rabbit, and the badger, and the hedgehog, and the mole. They're all stuck in the snow. Grandma or Baba's looking out the window first to make sure that Nicky is safe and sound, and then making sure that he has two mittens, just like she said she would when he went out to play. And then look at the different sizes. When he came back, one is huge that the animals were in, right? All right, so today you are going to get to ignore my ABs. You guys are going to do this for math if you haven't already, and I decided to write on my table because it was there and it was quick. All right, so I planned this and then I kind of forgot my plan. I was going to have you cut out the mittens, and if you have a hole puncher at home, you might need an adult's help for this, but if you have a hole puncher, you're going to hole punch around the body of the mitten, not the very top, okay? We're just going to hole punch around the body of the mitten. I'm going to show you what you're doing if you have a hole puncher. If you don't have a hole puncher, no worries. We'll just staple the mittens together, and that'll be okay. But a skill that I love to do, I should have put that one up here. A skill that I love to do is lacing, and that is using string or thread and putting it through kind of like we're sewing, because, let me find the end, you also need some string. This is a great skill because we have to practice holding on to something thin or little, so it's strengthening our fine motor skills, our handwriting muscles, but then it's also, we have to, our brain has to communicate with our eyes and our fingers to get our fingers to put the string through the hole. So this is a great activity. So what you're going to do, if you have a hole punch and if you have string, you're going to punch your holes so they look like this. Can you see them? How can you see them the best? And then the string goes through the hole. And then you're going to flip your mitten over and you're going to put your string through the hole this way. And you're going to go back and forth. Typically, you would have a small piece of string. Okay. See? Uses your brain to communicate with your fingers to get the string to go through the hole. Pull it through. Flip my mitten over. Lace it through. Pull it through. So you would keep going until your mitten is laced all the way around, okay? If you have a hole punch or string, or a hole punch and string, feel free to pause the video and do this real quick. If you don't have a hole punch or string, no worries. You can just staple your two pieces of mitten together, and that's okay too, because I forgot to include some string, and I also did not cut your mittens up for you and punch holes in them. So I apologize for that. So if you don't have a hole punch or string, that's okay. Just staple them. Go ahead, pause the video. I'm going to finish lacing my mitten and then I'll be right back. I'm looking at the time of this video and it's about to cut out actually, so I'm going to post a second video. So go ahead, get your mittens together and then click the second video to start the rest of our lesson.